Hello and happy Capesmas! It's the last day of Capesmas, friends. Grab yourself a tea, snuggle into your cozy little cape, perhaps grab some last-minute presents to wrap, and we'll jump right into some festive ramblings together. And kind of a mild wrapping tutorial. To make little name tags for all of my nieces and nephews on Bobby's side, I decided I was going to use these vintage hymnals that I have. Mostly because the music notes are pretty, and I feel like music notes and hymnal pages are just very Christmassy at their core. I'm folding these papers into thirds, and then I'm going to cut a nice little gift tag shape along the top by cutting two little corners off. Very simple, very easy. Children are of course going to be ripping it apart as soon as it goes into their little hands anyway, so I'm not putting too much work into it. The next thing that I do is I take a bunch of the capes and I practice rolling them into nice tight burritos. I was going to get little boxes and wrap the boxes and then take those with us to Ohio, where all of our family lives, but we weren't able to actually make it down for the holidays this year, so we're going to be sending everything in a box. So wrapping them in boxes to then fit them in the box just felt like a big waste of space. So instead, I'm going to be wrapping them like little burritos. I got this nice craft paper from Joann's. It was buy one, get four free, which is a fantastic deal. So you can see me here rolling them up and folding under the raw edge and taping it. And then I just go ahead and fold one side down while I carefully and meticulously tape the other side. And then after both sides are taped, I go ahead and attach the little tag with some nice fancy washi tape. Fantastic. I did this for each of the 13 capes, and I've got to say I am so excited to watch them open all of their little presents on Zoom Christmas morning, except it won't actually be Christmas morning because Bobby's family does Christmas 2 days before the actual day. They do this because Christmas Day is a really big deal for them because they all have in-laws and many other places to go. It's a very non-traditional, traditional Christmas, if you will. So adding one more non-traditional but semi-traditional element to it should be totally fine. It won't be quite the same, but it'll be good enough. Good enough has kind of been the theme of this project, unfortunately. I may have overextended myself. At least it wouldn't have been overextending if it hadn't been for, extenuating circumstances. A lot of things happened in between me planning Capesmas and buying all of the flannel and us actually moving to Florida. I mean, you saw the vlog, I assume. There was a lot of extra adventure in there. We had a house lined up and that kind of fell through, and then we decided, you know what, we're just gonna get down there and stay with friends and hope that we find a place to land. And we did, actually. And then as soon as we landed, we found out that, you know, the job that got Bobby and I down here was actually kind of a scam. So Bobby had to quit his job and find a new one within the first month of us moving down here, which was incredibly stressful, but we made it work. I got a part-time job at a Spirit Halloween and made a bunch of really awesome friends, and, you know, life is actually really coming together. Christmas time has always been the point in the year where I start to kind of look back and look forward and think about how things are maybe gonna look next Christmas, if that makes sense. And this is the first year where I've had genuinely no idea what life was going to look like next year. I thought I knew last year, and I was way off. But in the best possible way. For all of the craziness and instability and just wild, wild fun that's happened in the past year, I wouldn't trade any of it, because it's really been a proper adventure. As much as I wish that I had done things differently, especially when it comes to these capes, I wish that they had been all hand-tailored, beautiful masterpieces, which is originally what they were going to be. I was going to take roughly a week per cape, along with other projects, and they were going to be done methodically and slowly, with pattern tests in between, and then everything came together to not let that happen. In between life circumstances and the month that I lost because I was going to have to ship them instead of hand delivering them, I wound up having to do all of the capes in a 3-week span, which was not as fun as I planned on it being. Which is kind of selfish, because these capes really weren't for me to have a fun time making them as much as, that is partially what they were for. They're for a bunch of kids to play with. And that's not minimizing their value by any means. I think that all of our nieces and nephews are going to have a really, really fun time in these, actually. I just hope that they don't notice that some of them are dramatically higher quality than others. Oh no. If I am responsible for any future sibling rivalries because one of them got a nicer cape than the other, I apologize in advance. But I think that's called catastrophizing. Coming up with wildly unrealistic scenarios that are for sure not going to happen, but thinking that they're definitely going to happen. The holidays definitely make me catastrophize. There's so much that can go wrong, You could get the wrong gift for a child and then they would be thinking about it years later, or if you make one box way bigger than their sibling's box, they might fight over it and that might ruin Christmas. But what really does ruin Christmas? Because, a lot of the things that happened on Christmas that quote-unquote ruined it became the stories that everyone told years later, One of my favorite Christmas memories is actually from a year where my absolutely wild uncle put way too much water in the Dogs of Death because he didn't want to go to church service with my family and the rest of us, so he stayed back in the house and watched the food cook. And my mom's recipe for Dogs of Death is very, very specific. You put them all in a crock pot and you let them simmer and you do nothing to them. But, my uncle checked them and he saw that there was a skin forming and that the Dogs of Death had, started to congeal, and he didn't know that that was part of the natural process of cooking Dogs of Death. So he did what any person would do, and he added a little bit of water and stirred it in, which actually admittedly did ruin the Dogs of Death. They were not good. But that story is one that we've told for years. And another thing that happened that Christmas was that little baby Maya threw a little bit of a hissy fit over something unimportant. And my uncle sat with me on the couch while I was calming back down and said, well, I guess we both ruined Christmas together. And as small as that was, and as problematic as that moment was, my uncle probably should have been a better guardian and said something productive, but he was a terrible guardian and never did anything productive. So that was what we got. And it was kind of, in its own right, magical. At the very least, it was memorable. The New Year's Eve where my friends were at a party and I had to watch them without me having fun a block from my house was also memorable and not really fun necessarily. But, I logged on to Gaia Online and a bunch of my online friends were actually active that night and we played Dead Man's Pass, and honestly I had a lot more fun with them than I probably would have at that party. And Bobby and I aren't seeing any family this year. We're spending Christmas alone together. And if you're spending any holidays or any days alone together, or even just alone, I hope you find a way to make it a little bit fun. We should be starting to get to the end of Zoom calling into important events and having to create distance between us and our loved ones in order to keep everybody safe and happy. But wherever you are and whatever you're celebrating, or even if you're not celebrating anything, I hope that you have a happy Capesmas or a happy Tuesday. I hope that all of your adventures this year have a happy ending, and I hope that any tragedies that might occur around you don't drown you, but add a little bit of flavor text to your lore. Because that's all we are. We're just critters with lore. It's not trauma, it's lore! But to quote my favorite Jane, it's okay, and it's okay, and it's okay, and it's okay, because we're all a little lost. And it's okay. Fun fact, I actually had that song play at my wedding. I hadn't heard it yet, but I just knew that my friend Jane had just released a song, and our DJ Obadiah, who works at the good old station Radio U, asked me if I had a song for walking out after the ceremony, and I was like, you know what? We actually don't. And he was like, well, you need to pick one because that's gonna happen in about an hour. And I was like, okay, the new song that Jane wrote. not knowing that she had written this song about, you know, the experience and the freedom that she had after her divorce. So I kind of just love that parallel where she's gained all of this freedom and a new chapter in her life by cutting off dead weight and doing literally the complete opposite of what I was doing in that moment. But we kind of had the same exhilaration of starting a new chapter, knowing that we didn't have any of the answers, and knowing that things were gonna be okay. Anyways, thank you so much for coming along and wrapping these presents with me. I hope that it was fun to sit here and wrap presents together, and I hope that wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you're having at least a little bit of fun. Maybe a nice cup of tea. I will be doing Capesmas again next year, and I will be releasing some more cape patterns, and I'm really looking forward to sharing those all with you again. But until then, regular uploads are going to continue on both channels, with sewing content staying on the Maya Grace Sews channel, and looser pop culture commentary style videos going on the Maya Grace channel. Thank you again for supporting what I do and being here with me this Capesmas Eve. Thank you also for putting up with my incredibly bad singing for the Capesmas video. It was fun, but oof, never again. Never again. Bye, friends.